Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I'm excited to share with you a story of survival and transformation. The presentation is titled Hatchet, a story of survival and transformation, inspired by the Newbery Honor Book by Gary Paulsen. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the gripping journey of a young boy learning to survive in the wilderness and how this experience changes him forever. So, let's dive in and discover the remarkable story behind this powerful book. Meet Brian Robeson. He's a 13-year-old boy from New York City, and he's pretty intelligent and observant. But at this point, he's not really prepared for what's about to happen to him. On this slide, I want to highlight how he's an ordinary kid in many ways, yet he's about to face extraordinary challenges. Now, his journey starts when he's flying in a small plane to visit his father in the Canadian oil fields for the summer. He's hoping this trip will give him a fresh start, a new beginning. But there's a secret he's carrying with him, a heavy burden. He knows about his mother's affair, and that weighs on his mind during the flight. All these details help us understand who Brian is and what he's bringing into this story. A young boy facing both external and internal struggles that will shape his journey ahead. Today, I want to take you to a pivotal moment in the story, the crash and the gift. It all begins with a tragedy. The pilot suffers a fatal heart attack mid-flight, which leads to the small plane crashing into a remote Canadian lake. Imagine the shock and heartbreak of such a sudden, devastating event. Now, amidst this tragedy, there's a glimmer of hope. Brian becomes the sole survivor. He's left with nothing but the clothes on his back and one very special item. This item isn't just clothing or gear, it's a gift from his mother, a small hatchet. This hatchet might seem simple, but it's incredibly important. It's going to become Brian's most valuable possession, a tool that will help him survive and adapt to his new reality. As we explore this story further, keep in mind how a single gift, given in love, can turn into a vital resource, something that not only helps you survive physically, but also fuels your resilience and hope. Being in the Canadian wilderness means I was miles away from any form of civilization, completely alone in the vast North Woods. There was no way to contact the outside world, which made the situation even more intense. My immediate priorities had to be focused on survival. First, finding fresh water to stay hydrated, and then building a safe shelter to protect myself from the harsh elements. These were the first critical challenges I faced. Every day brought new struggles, overwhelming hunger that seemed to gnaw at me constantly, paralyzing fear of the unknown, and crushing despair that threatened to overwhelm my spirit. It was a relentless test of my will to survive, but each challenge pushed me to find strength I didn't know I had. This part of my journey really underscores how crucial it is to adapt quickly and stay resilient when faced with such extreme isolation and adversity. In this part of the story, we see Brian facing the relentless challenges of survival in the wild. The elements play a huge role here: weather, insects, and cold conditions. Mosquitoes and black flies are more than just nuisances. They torment him constantly, making every moment uncomfortable. Storms and freezing nights test his resilience and willpower, forcing him to adapt and endure. Then there's the aspect of wildlife. Brian learns that coexisting with animals like bears, porcupines, and moose isn't just about avoiding danger, it's about understanding them. Each encounter becomes a lesson in respect and caution, reminding us that nature is powerful and unpredictable. This all leads to a crucial realization for Brian. He needs to stop fighting nature and start learning from it. Recognizing the patterns and behaviors of the wilderness becomes essential for survival. It's not just about survival in the traditional sense, but about building a respectful relationship with the environment around him. And of course, danger is always present, reminding us that the wilderness demands our full attention and respect at all times. Now let's talk about the change within Brian during this journey. First, we see his mental growth. Initially, he was overwhelmed by despair and hopelessness, but over time, he shifts toward determination and purpose. Instead of focusing on what he's lost, he begins to focus on survival, learning to see challenges as opportunities to grow stronger. Next, the physical changes are just as remarkable. Brian becomes stronger, more capable, and resilient. His body adapts to the harsh wilderness environment, which makes him more self-reliant. He learns to depend on his own strength and resourcefulness. Finally, we see the emergence of the new Brian. He's more observant, purposeful, and confident. He moves from waiting around for rescue to actively taking steps to provide for himself. This transformation highlights how resilience and inner growth can fundamentally change who we are in the face of adversity. All of these points tie into the overall theme of transformation, how difficult experiences can lead to profound internal change. Let's test our understanding with a few questions. First, what was the secret that Brian knew about his mother? Think about how that secret influenced his mindset and actions. Second, how did Brian manage to land the plane after the pilot died? It's a remarkable story of quick thinking and resourcefulness. Third, what was the first major challenge Brian faced after the crash, and how did he solve it? This highlights his resilience and problem-solving skills. Finally, describe the turning point when Brian realized he had to change his mindset to survive. Recognizing that mental shift is crucial in overcoming adversity, and it's a key theme that runs throughout this story. These questions help us reflect on how mindset and determination are vital in challenging situations. This slide marks a real turning point in Brian's journey, and I want to highlight why. First, we see a spark of hope emerge from a pretty painful encounter, when Brian gets attacked by a porcupine. While it sounds like a setback, it actually becomes a crucial realization about survival and adaptation. Sometimes, our toughest moments teach us the most important lessons. Next, Brian discovers something really important: the hatchet. He learns he can strike sparks against a rock using the hatchet, which unlocks its true potential. This is a game changer because it means he can create fire, a vital resource in the wild. And speaking of fire, the benefits are immense. Fire provides warmth, helps him cook food, keeps away dangerous animals, signals for rescue, and most importantly, it renews his hope. All these elements are interconnected and highlight how resilience and resourcefulness can turn a dire situation around. This moment exemplifies the core theme of the presentation. Adaptation is key to survival. All right, let's talk about mastery. This slide highlights how Brian masters the basics, which is essential for survival and growth. First, we see the shelter. Brian starts with a simple lean-to, but over time, he improves it into a more secure, permanent home. This isn't just about having a roof over his head. It's about learning to protect himself from the harsh weather and dangerous animals out there. It's about transforming a basic structure into a safe haven. Next, we move to food. Finding natural sources like berries and fish becomes a key part of his survival. But what's really clever is that Brian invents a bow and arrow, his most important invention, to hunt foolbirds and other game. This innovation greatly increases his chances of getting enough food and shows how resourcefulness can turn basic skills into effective tools. Finally, the concept of innovation ties everything together. Brian's resourcefulness and problem-solving skills help him go from just surviving to actually providing for himself. This mastery of the basics, shelter, food, and invention, reflects a larger theme. That mastering fundamental skills empowers us to adapt and thrive in challenging situations. Now let's talk about setbacks and windfalls. First, the destruction. Imagine a powerful tornado ripping through and destroying everything Brian had painstakingly built. His camp, his tools, his efforts, all gone in just moments. It's a devastating loss, but it's also a reminder that life can be unpredictable and sometimes harsh. But then, out of that chaos, a new opportunity arises. The tornado actually brings back part of the plane, the tail section, right to the surface of the water. It's almost like a miracle in disguise, a piece of hope rising from what seemed like complete disaster. Inside that plane fragment, Brian finds his survival pack, which includes essential items like food, a first aid kit, a rifle, and most importantly, an emergency radio transmitter. This pack could be a game changer for him, providing vital resources and communication tools that could make all the difference in his survival journey. So this slide highlights how setbacks can unexpectedly turn into opportunities, how even in moments of destruction, there's potential for new beginnings and crucial resources. It's a perfect example of resilience and the importance of staying alert for possibilities, even when things seem bleak. Let's take a deeper look with some critical thinking questions. First, how does the hatchet symbolize Brian's transformation throughout the novel? Well, the hatchet starts as a simple tool, but as Brian learns to survive, it becomes a symbol of his resilience and resourcefulness. It represents his ability to adapt and grow stronger through adversity. Next, think about this. If Brian had not found the survival pack, do you believe he would have survived the winter? I believe it would have been much harder. The pack gave him essential supplies and knowledge, but without it, he would have needed to rely even more on his instincts and ingenuity, which makes his eventual survival even more impressive. Now, what is the most important lesson Brian learns about the wilderness? I think the key lesson is that nature is both beautiful and dangerous, and understanding how to respect and work with it is crucial for survival. It's not just about fighting against nature, but learning to coexist with it. Finally, consider how the secret loses its power over Brian as he learns to survive. Initially, the secret held a lot of emotional weight, perhaps guilt or shame. But as Brian gains confidence and skills, he no longer needs to hide or avoid facing the reality of his situation. His independence and resilience diminish the secret's hold over him, showing his growth and the importance of facing challenges head-on. Now, let's talk about the pivotal moment of rescue and reflection. Brian's first step was to send out a signal. He used the emergency transmitter from his survival pack to send an SOS into the wilderness. This simple act of hope and survival is crucial because it demonstrates how even in the most dire circumstances, a quick, decisive action can make all the difference. Then there's the rescue itself. A fur buyer's plane happened to hear Brian's distress signal and landed on the lake, bringing him back to civilization, and of course, back to his family. This moment highlights the importance of perseverance and resourcefulness, because Brian's survival was not just about staying alive physically, but also about holding on to hope and using every tool available. Finally, we see how Brian has changed. He returns home physically thinner and stronger, which reflects his physical resilience. But more importantly, he's mentally transformed, more observant, more appreciative of the little things, and incredibly resilient. His experience in the wilderness has shaped him in profound ways, reinforcing the overall theme of growth through adversity. Let's take a closer look at some vocabulary and details from the story. First, what is a foolbird? Well, it's a type of bird Brian initially found difficult to catch, and this challenge showed how unfamiliar he was with the wild. His trouble catching them at first highlights how much he had to learn about survival in nature. Next, let's define resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from setbacks or challenges. In the novel, Brian shows resilience when he keeps trying to survive despite setbacks, like when he faces injuries or hunger. He doesn't give up even when things get tough, and that's a key part of the story's message. Now, what was the first food that Brian ate which made him sick? It was berries, if I recall correctly. He learned an important lesson from that experience. Not everything in nature is safe to eat. It taught him to be cautious and to observe carefully before consuming unknown foods. Finally, Brian called the thief an animal that stole his eggs. It was actually a raccoon. This discovery was important because it helped him understand the threats in his environment and how animals can impact his survival. Recognizing the animals around him was crucial for his safety and success. Overall, these points deepen our understanding of Brian's journey, his challenges, lessons, and growth in the wild. So why do we read Hatchet? Well, it's more than just a story. It's a legacy of survival and transformation. This book has become a classic because it captures a timeless tale of human endurance. It shows how the human spirit can survive and even thrive against all odds, which is incredibly inspiring. But beyond the adventure, there are important lessons we can take into our own lives. Resilience, observation, patience, and positive thinking, these are skills that go far beyond the wilderness. They're relevant in everyday situations, helping us navigate challenges with strength and perspective. And let's not forget the power of reading itself. Engaging with stories of growth and transformation helps us better understand ourselves and the world around us. Stories like Hatchet remind us of our capacity to adapt and grow. So I encourage you to keep reading, keep growing, and keep surviving. Because through stories, we find the strength and insight to face whatever comes our way.